Hello everyone, and welcome to The Man Behind the Curtain. I'm Randy Young, the guy in the red shoes, and I've been in the video production business my entire career, and it's taken me around the world a few times. But more importantly, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the most creative people in television, and boy do they have stories to tell about the business and the people who make it happen. We've always been told, ignore the man behind the curtain, but you can talk to me. Okay, let's get started. I'm sitting here in the home offices of On Cue Productions. It's a company run by Dave Gaudet. He's an actor and a comedian, as you can see, but he's also a producer, creative director. He's a host, an actor. He does a lot of things. He's a great guy. His name's Dave Gaudet. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Randy, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Great. I'm glad that you came down to Chicago to our lovely little abode.
Oh, I love it here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. One of the things I like to start out with everybody is tell me the brief history of Dave Gaudet. Where did you start? How did you start? What brought On Cue on?
So, I guess the best way to describe my sort of move is my move to Chicago out of school, because I've been in the industry since I was 21 years old. I basically was in an improv troupe in college, and a guy named Steve Carell came back to our improv troupe and said, hey, they're paying us money to do this in Chicago. And I said, well, I'd rather go do that than sell ball bearings and rocket engines. And so I came to Chicago.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Denison University in Ohio. And I had the pleasure of being able to tour for 4 years while I was there as a comedian with the improv troupe Burpee Seedies theatrical company. And so I came to Chicago to be on Saturday Night Live. I wanted to be famous and be that comedian. Mm-hmm. And I fell into a job because of another member of that group was working for Carabiner at the time. And so one of my very first jobs that I liked, I had several other jobs that you got out of the reader back then and stuff like that, but was to work for Carabiner. And so under the sort of tutelage of John Buckland, mm-hmm. who you and I are great friends with, have known for a very long time, he mentored me and kind of taught me everything. So very quickly I became a producer at Carabiner as well, and then kind of freelance on that side. So the entire time I was a comedian, but my day job was in meetings and events. And in the beginning, I ran the demo room. I washed the rocks out of the waterfall, which was my first job. I showed up in a suit, and they were like, it's really pretty casual here. I was like, no, this is the way I dress. They're like, well, wash those rocks in that waterfall. Like next day, I was like, I think I'm gonna change up a little bit. But I kind of learned both jobs. Every night I was performing, and every day I was helping produce meetings and events.
Now, were you doing stand-up at that time, or were you doing comedy troupe things?
So everything so at that point in time, I was in the repertoire theater at Second City. I was in comedy sports and running comedy sports. Eventually, I became one of the owners of that. I also performed at Improv Olympic at the time, which is now called I.O., and then also one of the founding, a member when the first troupe started out for the Annoyance Theater. So every night I was performing or rehearsing or doing something somewhere on some stage. And at Carabiner, my job was to run the demo room and clean rocks, but they quickly started to say, well, why don't you rewrite this script? It came in, it's not really that funny. We want it to be entertaining. And that was back in the day of book shows.
Punch it up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So we did a lot of punch-ups. And then they'd say, well, why don't you come on the pitch and you'll pitch it? And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And we'll be the actors. And myself and Brian Bragg, who was also in the industry, I don't know if you remember Brian or not from Carabiner, we would come out and play all the roles. And then the client would say, well, they're going to be our guys, right? And they're like, no, they're just PAs at our office. And so eventually I said, I can't do that anymore. I want to do the fun parts. And so I became a freelance producer, and then sort of shifted myself into just doing comedy sports. I dropped all the other theater companies because it was I mean, it's a labor of love, certainly, over 33 years of building that theater.
Sure.
As well.
I think I first met you when you were working with Comedy Sports.
It could be, yeah.
I don't know what job it was on, but
Yeah.
I remember that name, and I remember you coming into it and hosting a bunch of shows and doing some skits, and
Yeah.
and the work with the audience was the strong part there. You brought the audience into everything.
Yeah, everything's audience participation. It's a format. Comedy Sports is a format of two competing teams who are playing the storyline of we're the best improvisers on the planet, and we're going to challenge each other to make the audience laugh. So audience give us a suggestion,
Right.
and they're what's called short form. But I had done it for 4 years at Denison. So when I came to Chicago and got into Comedy Sports, most people were just starting. It was really fresh and new. Back then, you would rhyme, dog and hog, and people would go, "Oh my God, it's magic!"
Oh, it was brilliant.
Right now, they're doing full-blown Shakespearean plays and musicals and all sorts of different things. But with the improv format, but that was kind of what I would do as a host. I would go in and I would host, and then bring in other people from my troupe to say, let's expand this a little bit. Let's do a day in your life. Tell us the beats of your day. Mm-hmm. And then we would reenact this day in their life.
And make it funny.
Yeah, you hope, right? Otherwise, why are you there?
Funny and deliver some message too.
Yeah.
You had to work in corporate message into all of this as well.
I did. I was lucky enough to be an economics and theater major, so I knew a little bit about
There's a strange
business.
Combination.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the few people that actually uses their major in our industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had a good business acumen, so I could understand what people were sharing with me in terms of doing discovery and input sessions and things like that. And eventually, what I ended up doing is I was producing a lot for a lot of big pharma, a lot of tech companies and stuff. But then I was also performing as well, and the producing part wasn't something that I loved, and so I finally just said, I'm just going to do the creative parts. I just want to be the host, and I want my tour around with my teams of people. And so that's when we started something. It was just called Dave Co, because people would do just like they were doing Caribbean. Like, well, call Dave, he'll figure it out. Right. We need 75 Bob Vilas to tour around in a bus for a Sears promotion. Mm-hmm. It's like, call Dave, he'll figure that out. And we found 75 people that were willing to wear beards and tour around as Bob Vila. But what ended up happening for me is that I wanted to create a company that was just increasing the creative bandwidth of our production companies, our partners, right? So I don't want to compete, and I don't go direct to clients. I go through the production companies that you and I all work for, and that's where we built those relationships to increase their creative bandwidth, because a lot of these production companies already have creative directors. They already have perhaps writers on staff, certainly wonderful producers. So we just kind of latch onto them when they need it and play nice in the sandbox.
So you think most of your role is writing, creating for them with their ideas, and then delivering that. Is that
I think it comes anywhere within the timeline of the event. Like, for me, I love to have a seat at the table early on, because then somebody doesn't have to explain what happened and how I got here. Right. So happy to come in crisis mode and say, 4 days from now we have a show. Can you get 5 actors and do it in Spanish?
Yeah.
We go, okay, yeah, sure, we can do that. It's great. I'd rather have a seat at the table early, but I also realize that if I'm not the production company, I'm not the person that gets to decide that. So what we do is we snap on wherever you need us. Sometimes it's just a writer, and there's a creative director with a wonderful idea, and they say, I don't write comedy. We go, oh, okay, great. Or now what we're doing, I would tell you on cue, probably 30% of what we do is comedy, maybe 40%. The majority of what we're doing is creating empathetic moments and experiences within the events to create action for attendees. So we work a lot in the insurance space. So everybody in an insurance meeting, somebody dies. That's basically the gist of it. Right. So you're not like, and now comedy. So you don't see a lot of it in that side. And I think the same thing for the pharma world. I think the pharma became very smart it used to be yay, rah, rah, look at all the money we make. Sure. Right? And look at where we're taking you, these fancy places. And now it's about, how many patients we help. And so that becomes... They grew a heart. Yeah. Pull on the heartstrings and find ways to be able to deliver that kind of content is what we're doing a lot of now.
Is that harder than doing the comedy content or trying to put some levity into the shows?
It's harder in the aspect that I don't have 40 years of experience doing it, or nearly 50 years experience of doing it. But it's still evoking an emotion, right? So whether it's empathy, inspiration, like a lot of what we're doing and a lot of what we create is trying to take them out of their daily life or find a deeper meaning in why they do what they do. And so where we write and we create is from a point of view of the audience. We get to know our audience really well, so when we're creating an experience, we know it should affect them. Like, we don't just go on and take a guess at it. No. We do discovery sessions with high achieving, the high performance, high achieving, and we also ask for low achieving, because we want to know what's the struggle down here for those folks, and why are these people kicking ass and taking names.
I've talked to a lot of producers, and they mentioned the difference between the audience expectations going in and their realizations going out, and that sometimes the audience doesn't know what the corporate message truly is. And that's the challenge of the writers and the performers on stage, to deliver that message and to have them understand it.
Yeah. I think there's...
and actually retain it.
Yeah, I think retain it, and there's a believability factor, right? We know, I have a folder, it's called 1001 Themes, and it was given to me by another creative director years ago, and you go back and you look at some of these themes and you just say, how does nobody believe this? There's no way anybody believed this. Or, sometimes we'll work with a client and the client will come up with their theme and they hand it to you and they go, this is our theme, and it has 15 words in it. And you're like, it's not going to happen. So,
right.
I think our job as creative directors or as creative people is sometimes to help our clients help themselves. And that becomes, how do you move that needle? How do you inspire what it is that they want to have happen in a unique fashion? And when you can do that and make it memorable, then there's a believability factor that I think goes along with it.
That involves a lot of client training too. They have to buy into the message, and then learn from you how to deliver it, how to be effective. Do you help that training as well?
I take a little different approach, because I believe it's easier to sell ideas if the clients, this will sound so bad, if they get to put their scent on it. Right?
Yeah.
So if you do a strong enough discovery session and learn about the attendees and learn about their wants and needs, and then learn about the executive leadership and what you're doing, you become a catalyst. But where I think the creative director is most effective is when they direct the creative process. And that means validating the time that executives spent with you to share their message. So you can say, hey, this is what you came back and said. This is why we got excited about it, because we know this about your attendees. So when you become that catalyst, ideas are very easy to sell if everybody thinks it's their idea. And that's part of the creative process that I had to learn. Because in the beginning, I would go in and I'd be like, if I don't come up with the theme, I have failed. If I don't come up with the idea or the joke, I failed against other comedians.
Right.
But there's a thing in improv, which is this sort of yes-and mentality, where you yes-and people's ideas, and all ideas are good ideas, and eventually out of that pours something very unique and wonderful. And we have to remind ourselves of that, I think, in the creative process sometimes.
But the yes-and is a standard improv skit and tool.
Yeah.
And you utilize that very well.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's certainly something that I was trained in me to see the power of it.
Right.
And I think when you use it properly, it's amazing what you can create.
What do you do when you get an executive or an executive team that just doesn't have a sense of humor?
It happens. Yeah, for especially for comedy. It certainly happens.
I've heard for years, comedy in an industrial, be afraid.
Yeah, but so comedy sports is a clean show. So for me, I was always creating in a box for comedy, right? So I already had this sort of parameters. I couldn't say certain things or do certain things, and I still had to try to get you to laugh. And so you find ways to be able to do that. I think, when you find executives or groups of people that don't have a comedic sensibility, it's probably because they got burned somewhere.
Sure.
And I think you have to find ways to, what I do is I sort of balloon ideas past them a little bit to break down that barrier and see where they laugh and where they giggle. And when that happens, then I remind them of that, and I keep trying to build that rapport with them so that there's a trust. But I also think sometimes there's not a place for it. And I don't want to force fit something that isn't going to be solved by the idea of comedy.
Well, you don't want to lay a lot of comedy responsibility on the guy in the suit and tie either.
No, we typically don't. We give them a punchline. We give them,
a setup line, a punchline.
A setup line. Leave them. It's about status, right? So when you go into work with an executive and they're on stage, they're always high status. When you come in as the guy who just joined the company.
Sure.
You come in as an outsider who is just telling you like it is, right? And so you're down here. But the moment that you flip that for just a second, that status with these executives, there's an entertainment value that happens.
There's that moment.
There's that moment, right? And so sometimes it's not about saying the funniest things. It's just about flipping status. And if you can do that effectively once, you'll get entertainment value. The audience will laugh. That's our executive. He's making fun of it. But the moment that you give that executive back that high status, that goes over the roof. And so the more you can do that flipping of the status becomes this entertainment value for the audience experience. And that's what we really look for in trying to do that.
And the executives are pretty easy to go along with that?
They are, once you build that trust and that rapport.
You can't just spring it on them.
Can't spring it on them. I have some clients that I can get them to do anything. And I've gotten them to do just about anything. I have clients that I've done their show for 30 years. And I walk on stage and everybody applauds and like, yay, he's back, right? I love those audiences.
Sure.
But I also have other audiences that they're just not quite sure if it's going to work. And the moment that I show them that it works, then they want to do more, they want to be more, they want to be a part of it. But yeah, I think you have to protect those people that you're working with. Not just your actors, but I think the executives as well. And so we try to always leave them as high status.
Right. Let's get a little bit of your economic background.
Sure.
Does the economic temperature of the country, of the industry, or the segment of the business that you're talking to, does that affect the audiences or affect the jokes?
I think in the comedy world, I think it certainly took a hit for a couple of years, and so it was very hard to find people to laugh. So we didn't send out a lot of casts. We're starting to send it out again. But hosting wise, lending personality to an experience has always been okay. The biggest compliment that I get as a host when I'm hosting is they come up to me afterwards and they said, "You should do comedy for a living. You're really good at this." And I'm like, "Do you honestly think I just joined the company?"
Right.
Or they have no idea. I've been here for 25 years pretending to do this character. Right. So they get excited, and then now people can look you up, and so they see where you are. But the biggest compliment that I always get is that they think that you work for them because I'm speaking their language and talking their language.
Well, you've done the research with them.
Totally done the research to be able to do that. When you look at where the world is and what's happening, I think people weren't sure when they were supposed to laugh, or it was appropriate to laugh or not appropriate to laugh. And so you had to make it personal. So we did a lot of self-deprecating humor about ourselves, it's okay to laugh. We're going to laugh at me and my stupidity as I go through this thing, or my mistakes, and what I'm trying to figure out is how you do your job so well, but I'm going to stumble along the way.
So many of the meetings that we get involved with, some of the people aren't quite sure where the company's going at that point in time.
Yeah.
And you have to communicate, hopefully, a positive message.
Well, and if you don't do your homework, you get surprised.
Right.
So there's a reason why I do it. Because early on in my career, we did a show for, it was like a lawn care company. They made like rakes and backhoes and stuff like that. So the president of the company hired us, and he said, these are the things that are kind of messed up right now. We're fixing them. So I want you to make fun of them. So we go, okay. And so we wrote these sketches making fun of their compensation plan, their supply chain management, all these kinds of things. And we thought those would be hilarious. At one point in time, we brought out dolls, bobblehead dolls of the guys like, we don't need extra people working. We just need bobblehead dolls, and making jokes.
Oh, no.
Well, the president, they were laughing. They thought everything was great. And then so we showed up on the day of the show, and the CEO, is the president's dad, said, I probably heard I fired my son last night. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, I heard your stuff's funny, so I want you guys to still go out and do your jokes. And we're like, well, it doesn't really work that way. It's not like we're doing jokes. We're doing sketches about certain things, right. And it was supposed to happen through the meeting. So then we leave, you guys come in and you show the things fixed. Like, no, just do them all. So we quickly put a running order together, and we start the show by doing 5 sketches that are not received well. The audience is like just staring at us, and we were like, oh my God. And then here comes the CEO. He goes, all right, thank you guys, thank you so much. All right, as you know, I fired my son last night, so I thought I'd just open up a little tete-a-tete with you. Want to ask any question you want of me in the front row. This guy's like, yeah, when the fuck are we getting paid? They hadn't been paid in like 6 months. The supply chain, and we're like kicking them in the teeth. And it was the worst. And I remember like packing the bag. I'm like, let's get out of here. Make sure we get paid. Run away. But we don't make that mistake anymore, right? We learn both sides of for you, of both sides of the curtain. For us, both sides of the edge of the stage.
Right.
Right. What's the audience thinking? What are the executives thinking as well? But then we don't really do a lot of political stuff. So that doesn't really affect us. You learn very quickly that you're not going to appease everybody, so why go there?
Well, good quarters, bad quarters for a company. It's a political issue into itself.
Yeah, right? I've had, unbeknownst to us, where we've done a sketch, and after the sketch, they come out and they go, all right, let me tell you what doing chapter 11 is all about. Meanwhile, I'm dressed up like a Beatle singing a song about come together. Yeah. I was like, no, this is not happening.
So, somehow that segue doesn't work.
Yeah, I know. And there's been obviously those are limited now, but when you start off, you're just happy to get a gig.
Yeah, I know.
And so if they laughed in the little boardroom of 4 people, you thought you're going to be great, but you have to do your homework.
What are the challenges you find running on cue?
I think the hardest one is account management, because for me, a lot of the people that I work with, like you and some of the people we were talking about earlier, they're literally friends of mine.
Sure.
So that's how I get my work, is from my friends. But if they lose that business that year, then I've got to go out to people that I haven't spoken to a while and reintroduce myself.
Sure.
That's probably the hardest thing for me, because I just don't have as much time as I've never really had a lot of time to be able to do it effectively. And so I've been lucky enough to manage the friendships and the relationships in this business to continue to be a resource for them. But I also knew, at some point in time, I couldn't just be a host all the way to the end. I'm very blessed to be able to do it about 50% of my time, but that's when I shifted over to being a creative director and taking the 30 years of experience of being on stage to be a speech writer and a speech coach, and then write experiences, the overall sort of arching experience as a creative director, and control the creative process.
Well, that's the expansion of yourself, your business.
It is.
And the value of what you bring to the event.
Well, it took a realization for me, and I share this a lot with people that are trying to get into the comedy industry or whatever, into a creative side, is that there was a time where I needed a little life readjustment, let's call it, Randy. Both you and I are
been through there, done that.
A couple of those, right? And my adjustment was I was getting very angry at things, and I got to a point where, I don't believe anger is an emotion. Anger is a heightened of another emotion. Eventually, you can't deal with it, and so anger comes up. And so, was I jealous of my friends that were going off to Saturday Night Live or doing movies? And I was like, no, I think those are my friends. I want them to be successful. Was it, is 1,000, or you're not making enough money, or what is it? And it wasn't. I was doing fine, and my friends were doing fine as well that were working for me. But it was fear, and it was the fear of that I'd have to go get a real job. And so the moment that I changed...
Got to start working for a living.
Well, the moment that, like account management, to me, that's work for me. I'm like, I don't want to go to a real job.
Yeah.
What it became was just to create a life where you're going to be creative every day. And the moment that I was able to do that, whether it's hosting or doing a voiceover or speech coaching or creative directing or writing proposals, just to be creative every day and create a life that can do that is a game changer for me.
I think everybody who's in this business, from whatever aspect, the onstage talent, guys like me who work backstage, stage managers, creative directors, writers, we're all in this because we love this business so much, and it doesn't feel like work, like you said.
Yeah.
You don't see any calluses on my hand. I love what I do, and I want to continue doing it as long as I can. I think you have the same sort of outlook to it.
I do.
Trying to find something new.
Yeah, I try to find something new. I try to find new ways to bring experiences to life. I love the challenge of starting from scratch with a room of people that I respect, like our friends and people that we work with that are very creative. And you and I have had these conversations where what I say and do on stage could be great. But if you don't get it onto the screen, or you don't get the right angle of it, it's not going to be great.
Or I cut away too soon.
You cut away too soon. Or where did he go?
Right. And I think my job as directing a guy like you who does comedy on stage is to understand your timing and work my timing into that.
Yeah.
Because as I've told many an executive or many a performer on stage, they didn't hire me to make you look bad.
Right.
Our job is to make you look good.
Yeah.
And your job is to deliver the message and to add a little levity to the performance and to the message.
Well, provide a platform, right? A platform for the message. And I think when you embrace the skill sets of others around you, right, and listen to their expertise, I think you get a better end product.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think I said earlier, like I like to get a seat at the table early. I like to bring in my team earlier and have that conversation. They don't have to be there for the next 4 months, right? But when you get in the beginning of it and you talk about what it is, the idea that you have and the concept that you want to develop, there's a lot of really creative and wonderful souls that we work with in this world at every level, at every position, that have something to add. And if you listen, if you direct that creative process, you can get something that's new and cool, that's past your own imagination. And those kind of moments in the last couple of years for me have been really exciting, to get to do what we do with the love of my friends, around me.
Those are the best moments.
Yeah.
That's what keeps us doing this, frankly.
It's not the bar?
Well, occasionally. But no, finding new things and discovering things together.
Yeah.
All right, so let's step back to the economics one more time.
Yeah.
Where's the business going?
Production companies are limited in what necessarily they can do. And I get everybody wants to be the keeper of tight budgets and make those things happen. But I think what gets lost in that is the effectiveness to create experiences that will move an audience, because we don't get all the toys and bells and whistles that we need to be able to do that. And so when that happens, the experiences that we're doing don't seem as effective, so they say, well, why do that?
Does that put more pressure on you to deliver it in that way?
It does. I mean, I've got a good bag of tricks, so I'm able to figure stuff out or find new ways to be able to do things. But I think the other aspect of the economics that gets clobbered as well is, so let's look at like pandemic-wise. So pandemic, everybody said, okay, we all host meetings, we all do virtual meetings. So great, fine. And so we all said we'd do it, but because of the extra costs, everybody used their internal people to do it.
Sure.
We'll use our internal hosts, it'll be great.
Right.
And it was fine on the Zoom call when people watched a 4-hour meeting for 17 average minutes. never do the metrics on any of that, by the way.
No,
'Cause it was
you don't
not
want to
good.
read that report.
You don't want to read that report. But they thought it was just as effective. And the unfortunate is that fortunately, I would say, I think we're building back towards it. We're seeing more casts going out. We've got a couple of cast shows. I don't know that we get to a full book show or not. I don't think that'll necessarily happen. But we're seeing us host. We're seeing us put out some casts to do some kind of fun role-playing or experiences. We're seeing musicians back into the fold of things that we're putting together.
That's all good news.
It's all good news. And the acrobats in that. I think right now the spectacle acts are probably the foot in the door first. And then I think what we may see, it just goes through cycles, right?
Spectacle act, like a Cirque du Soleil troupe of some sort.
Cirque du Soleil,
jugglers,
mentalists, all those kinds of things. And I like as a creative director to say, what are my toys? what do we have to play with?
Right.
And then find a new way to sort of twist what that person or act is doing. How
does that affect the rest of your troupe? How big a troupe do you have?
Well, we have a staff of 5 now that we use on a regular basis, and that's creative directors and producers and writers. But then we have probably, I would say, in our arsenal, probably 60 to 70 actors that we can use at any point in time. It makes it tight on the actors mostly,
sure,
because we're still writing. And we're still producing, and we're still, creating.
You're doing the backroom thing.
We're not doing as many, putting a cast out, and touring somewhere for 11 cities. Those kinds of days they haven't been happening as much.
Wow. So where does it go over the next year to 5 years?
I don't know if I necessarily know the answer. I do believe that things are in a cycle, and so that what was old is new will come back. I think there's a new generation of performers that are out there will get a chance. It's hard right now to sell an actor into a show because of all the NDAs that they sign. They don't have a reel, right?
Sure.
They don't have any material to be able to share of any of the shows that they've done.
Wow.
So what we've transformed is a little bit for all of our actors is we do an introduction reel for them. And then we try to tell our production partners, don't say, well, we'll get a reel and give it to you, because they just don't have them for the next generation.
Right.
So if you want that next generation to come up and fill and be, because you want the performers on stage to reflect your next generation of what you have in the audience,
sure,
right? In order to do that, we need to find a better way to be able to audition actors so that they can see who they are, believe in them, and let them do what they do with the material that they're doing. So we do a lot of virtual auditions where they get to sit in on the audition and be a part of the process.
Oh, that's a good idea.
We send out, when they see them, it's not just a picture of them and then you see the 3 or 4 things that they were able to pull out of improv shows or something that they hosted here. Instead, you meet them and they actually say, hey, thanks for meeting you. Here's what I'm into. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm about. If they have a reel, great, we share that reel. But then we have them actually do the material. We say, we'll put a sample script together for you and let them see that.
Let the executives of the company and the producers see that.
Yeah, let them see it. Even if the idea is going to change, at least give them a chance to be able to get a foothold in. Because I think a lot of why people aren't using the cast is because they can't see what they're doing, so they can't imagine it.
Yeah.
So we try to give them a glimpse into imagining it and being able to do that, which I think has really been helpful for us in getting cast back. And then I think the other thing is it's short attention span theater to the nth degree.
Oh boy.
We saw something the other day. It was a 22-minute video in the show. I mean, 22-minute video is a film short.
Yeah.
And we literally they played this 22-minute video because everybody had to say something in the video, and the audience isn't paying attention to that. So I think, how can you be more succinct with the message? I think, how can you represent the next generation effectively of not just the actors, but of the next audience coming in, right? Because a lot of our stuff is mimicking.
Well, the YouTube,
audiences.
TikTok generation audience.
YouTube, TikTok generation is there back. It's basically candid camera, right? Or punked, or now it's TikTok, right? But it is those kinds of things. So the ideas are quick and punchy, and those are the pieces that happen.
All right, talk to me about being on stage. Have you ever been just hung dry up there, not knowing where to go? Something just flopped.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to think on your feet. You got to come up with things.
Yeah, for me, I relish.
You've got a plan, but sometimes it don't work.
Yeah, because I relish in when it doesn't work. So where most people might freak out when it doesn't work, that means I get to go off script. So here we go.
Look out. Right.
And so for me, I don't really fear that. Where I do fear are things that are hard to recover. So if I'm doing a song parody, I always get scared. And the fear is not of performing it, because the fear is that I rehearsed it 2 days ago in a room. Sound was perfect. Right? I went away, you did 2 general sessions, you did a game show, you did this, and now I'm going to sing again. And you're hoping that it's all the same. And if it's not, you can't fake it. You can't not sing is what's happening. And sometimes you do it to yourself. So I did one recently. When Top Gun came through, so I was doing this Deck Boss Dave bit. And it was my second show as this character, and it was me teaching the audience of like 500 pharma reps that they were going to do Highway to the Danger, Highway to the Day. But they were going to hum it on kazoos, and I was going to sing it. So we gave out 500 kazoos, and I'm up there, and I've been practicing with the executives who have their little parts and stuff like that. And so I go away, and I come back, and I go to do it, and I didn't realize that when I did it, I didn't put on my Deck Boss Dave helmet, which was a real flight gear helmet. So all of a sudden, I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I put my helmet on, and I come out, and I'm like, all right, everybody. And I'm like, oh, I can't hear a thing. So when I cue the music, and I see people with their kazoos kind of like, oh, they're not really doing it. Oh, this isn't going well. It's like, no, I just can't hear them. So I'm like, those hiccups mess me up. Yeah. I freak out of like, oh no, what's happening? And in the end, it all worked out fine because I'm going to improvise my way around it and figure it out. But those are moments where it happens, or like if you're doing a dance number and the music goes out, you just exit.
Exit stage left.
We meant to stop here. We're going to leave. I know I was like this, but we're going to all exit. Sneak out of here.
So subtle.
So subtle. Yeah. So subtle. So I think, very few times do I find that I don't, that I freak out. I think I either find a way out of it, or I just find a funny way to make it like, well, we meant to do that.
Well, it sounds like you've never really had a job. You loved what you do, so you never really have a job.
There's times where it's a job, I think. I think there's times where it's a job, and I've had. I've owned a theater for 33 years. I just recently sold it back to the group, and out of the pandemic, I had to get out of the theater. That was certainly owning a theater is a job.
I'll bet.
Yeah, there's not a lot of fun in that part of it. Performing of it and the ensemble and building culture and things like that I love that part. But owning a theater was rough. Owning the bar in the theater was fun for the first couple months, and then I realized I was not good at that either. So I had to figure that out. But it was. I think I've been lucky, right? I've learned early on that if I can just create a life that's creative every day, that it probably won't seem like a job, but it's definitely fulfilling to get me past the other things that are difficult and trying that happen.
I think you've done a great job of it, and I've always enjoyed every time I've seen you on stage.
Yeah, I always feel like when I see you, I'm like, oh, I'm in good hands.
Yeah, we're gonna make something work.
Right. Hey, can we just invite Randy out onto the stage for a little bit so I know that where I'm standing?
Oh no, you're never gonna get me on the stage.
No, but I get you invite. You come out though in the beginning of the show.
Sure.
To tell me like, here's Dave. Here's where I can see you. Here's where I can't see you. What are we doing? What have you gotten me into? Right. And so your partnership.
That's self-preservation most of the time.
I don't know. Your partnership over the years for me has always made me look good.
Yeah.
So thank you right back at you.
Well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. This has been great.
Oh, thanks, man. I was excited when you called, so I'm glad we were able to do it.
Yeah.